This is my first video update coming to you from Athens, Greece on this Saturday. Let's talk about some news, and let's start things off with Joe Biden's phone call to the new British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, where Biden vowed to support Ukraine. Rishi Sunak said, "Yes, I agree." Biden vowed to take on China. Rishi Sunak said, "Yes, I agree." And together they reaffirmed their special relationship. They reaffirmed their vows to one another for this special US-UK relationship. Together, Sunak and Biden, they are going to be taking on Russia and China, Putin and Xi. And that must have been some phone call. That must have been some phone call between Biden and Sunak, reaffirming the special relationship. Rishi, this is Joe Biden. How you doing over there in the UK? I just want to call you and tell you that the special relationship between the US and the UK, it's stronger than ever. Stronger than ever. And together, Rishi, we are going to take on Russia. And we're going to take on China. Because it's all about democracy. Democracy is at stake. Democracy is at stake. Democracy is on the ballot, Rishi. Do you understand that? Democracy is on the ballot. That's Biden. He yells and then he whispers. He yells and then he whispers. Anyway, the UK, oh boy. They are in deep in Ukraine. In very, very deep. And the gray zone, they did a great job investigating the UK and its involvement in creating terror armies in Ukraine. And I'll put a link to this article down below. But basically, what's going on and what the gray zone uncovered is that the UK, working with a private British intelligence services firm called Prevail Partners, that they were training terror armies with a specific task to carry out terror operations, specifically in Crimea. And the agreement was with, the training agreement was with the Odessa branch of the security services of Ukraine. And they were basically building partisan terror armies together. And their plan called for the secret army to conduct sabotage and reconnaissance operations targeting Crimea, precisely the kind of attacks witnessed in past weeks. That's a quote from the Gray Zone article. And this group is called Prevail, the private intelligence firm founded by Special Forces veterans, including Royal Marine Brigadier Justin Hedges, Chris Donnelly, the British Army intelligence operative who requested the Crimean Bridge study, was among the key figures who covertly lobbied for Prevail's Ukrainian partisan program, the Gray Zone also said. It's a pretty incredible article, an incredible piece of investigative journalism as well. Basically, it's just saying that, yeah, the UK, along with secret services units in Odessa, in Ukraine, they're building these partisan terror armies to carry out terrorist attacks, specifically focused on Crimea. Kerch Bridge, anybody? Sevastopol, drone attacks, anybody? If you connect the dots, that's eventually where it takes you. They were actually, this is an even a more interesting part to the story, is that they were actually looking to put together this army, this partisan group in the town of Yaroviv. I don't know if that name sounds familiar, but Yaroviv was the military base that the Russians took out way in the beginning of the SMO. I don't know if you remember that incident where the Russians allegedly they sent a hypersonic missile to this mercenary training facility located in Ukraine, but very close to the border with Poland. And they killed, allegedly, they took out 250 British mercenaries who were training in this facility. And this was way in the beginning of the conflict. And the British mercenaries, they didn't see it coming. I mean, they had no advance notice of this missile that just completely demolished this structure, this dormitory training facility. And that's where, according to the article, that's where they initially were training up this terror group, this terror army. And when the Russians hit Yavoriv, I know I'm pronouncing the name a little bit wrong here, but after the Russians hit that facility, this Prevail mercenary group, they decided to move the training. Supposedly, allegedly, the training now has been moved to Poland and Greece. Training sites were lined up in Poland and Greece. That's very, very interesting. Greece, good job, Greece. Way to go, training mercenaries. You also have the fact that the Wagner Group, the Russian mercenary contract soldiers, they're being sued by the UK, and the reason they're being sued by the UK doesn't have so much to do with Ukraine. It has to do with cutting off markets outside of Ukraine for the Wagner Group, making it very difficult for them to get hired in other countries because of this lawsuit. So they're looking to sue the Wagner Group so they can push them out of the market and open up the market for these types of UK-funded and sponsored mercenary organizations, contract soldier organizations. So I will put a link to this article down below, and definitely give it a read, because it's pretty damning for the UK. The UK is really in this thing, very, very deep in this thing. And they may be in so deep that they can't get out of it. And what I worry about is that Rishi Sunak, unfortunately, is going to continue to dig the hole. He's going to continue to dig deeper on the orders of the Biden White House. And the more he digs, the more he risks the UK getting into some sort of smash. I don't know what that means or what that entails, but some sort of smash with Russia. That's where this is heading towards. And that is not a good thing. That is not at all a good thing for the UK. The UK is already getting picked apart and destroyed on an economic and societal level. The last thing it needs is some sort of smash up with Russia. And once again, I don't know what that would mean, but still. So that is the article from the Gray Zone. And since we're talking about Crimea and the terror attack on the bridge, the Ukraine post office, they thought it would be a good idea on the Russian holiday of Unity Day. On Friday, it was the Russian holiday known as Unity Day. The Ukraine post office thought it would be a good idea to put out another Crimean Bridge postage stamp. They put out one way before when the attack first took place, and they decided to issue another one. And this one is the draws from the movie Titanic, of course. What else would the actor regime of Zelensky pull from than a movie? And it's DiCaprio and what's her name, Kate Winslet. And instead of standing at the edge of the boat, you can see it on the video screen right now, they're standing on the edge of the bridge. Oh boy, it's not going to end well for Ukraine. They continue to feel a need to poke the bear. And the way I look at this latest move from the Ukraine post office is as such. This Crimean bridge terror attack has now become Ukraine's defining moment. This symbolizes their victory moment. This is the greatest achievement they've had in this conflict to date. That's how they're framing the attack on the Kerch Bridge. And if this was the greatest moment in this 255 days of conflict, then the trade-off has been terrible. Absolutely terrible for Ukraine, because what they got by taking out the bridge for 8 hours, the bridge was not working for 8 hours, and then it was fixed up and traffic was flowing again. 8 hours of stopping traffic on the Kerch Bridge resulted in 2 months of destruction of the Ukraine electric, energy, water, communication infrastructure, which continues to date as well, which continues to this moment. That's been the trade-off. Keep in mind, taking out the bridge for 8 hours resulted in no military victory, no tactical victory, operational victory, nothing. It didn't give Ukraine anything except this PR postage stamp talking point. And what it resulted in is Russia just turning the dial to a top level, to extreme, and saying, that's it. We're now going to just dismantle and demolish Ukraine's entire electrical infrastructure and their entire economy. That's been the trade-off. It sounds like a really, really bad deal, if you ask me. Just saying. That's what it sounds like. What else should we talk about? Since we're talking about Unity Day, let's talk about Putin and what he said during the Unity Day speeches, events, festivities. And Putin did talk about what's going on in Kherson. He did shed some light as to the recent moves in Kherson and the relocation, evacuation of citizens. And he said, and I quote, "Those living in Kherson must be evacuated from the most dangerous zones of action. The civilian population must not suffer from shelling, any kind of offensive and counteroffensive, and other activities related to military operations." So Putin was meeting volunteers who have been working in the Kherson region, and he decided to shed some light as to a lot of the talk about the civilian evacuations and what this means for Kherson. So nowhere in his statement is he hinting at some sort of retreat or evacuation, or, I mean, not that he would, but it seems like what we were talking about yesterday is exactly the reasons why Russia is moving civilians from the west of the Dnieper to the east, and it has to do with moving them out of the range of HIMARS, moving them to safer locations, because it does appear like there's going to be a lot of activity in on the west side of the river in Kherson, i.e. Russian activity, Russian movement, Russian military activity is going to be happening there. That's kind of what I'm getting from Putin's statements. Let's get the civilians to safety, because it's going to get serious. That's what I got out of this. No retreat. At least I'll stick by that analysis. We're not going to see the Russians retreat from Kherson. We're going to probably see the opposite. Even though there still is talk about a Ukrainian offensive in Kherson, this big offensive that NATO is trying to push them to do. I still believe that the Russians are going to stay and fight and eventually mobilize and go on the advance. That would be my hunch with regards to Kherson. And Putin also said, with regards to the mobilization, to the partial mobilization, he said that 300,000 Russian troops have been mobilized, plus 18,000 volunteers. Putin commented on mobilization on Friday after a flower-laying ceremony in Moscow marking Unity Day. Quote, "We already have 318,000 mobilized reservists." Why 318,000? Because volunteers are coming, the Russian president explained, adding that the number of volunteers is not going down. According to Putin's latest remarks, 49,000 of the draftees are already on the front lines in Ukraine, while the rest are still undergoing training. So that was Putin's remarks with the partial mobilization. And what else should we discuss here? How about we do an update on the UN nuclear inspectors. They have completed their inspection of Ukraine nuclear facilities. Remember that story with the dirty bomb? And what do you think they found out? Take a guess. Well, they found nothing. They found nothing, as expected. This was completely expected, completely predictable. The UN inspectors, in a statement released on Thursday, they said that the IAEA, they said that over the past few days, the inspectors were able to carry out all activities that the IAEA had planned to conduct and were given unfettered access to the locations. Based on the evaluation of the results available to date and the information provided by Ukraine, the agency did not find any indications of undeclared nuclear activities and materials at the locations, exactly as was planned. And so the collective West mainstream media is now running with articles saying that Russia's dirty bomb narrative was just fake news and stuff like that. There you have it. That was the plan that was the goal of sending these IAEA guys to Ukraine in order to provide the cover for the Zelensky regime, so that Zelensky can say, you see, Russia was lying. We let the IAEA into Ukraine and they found nothing. So the Putin government is spreading misinformation and fake news. That's why the U.S. sent these guys over for diplomatic political cover. And they did their job. And they did their job. As expected, they went there, they found nothing, and now everyone can say that the dirty bomb narrative was just fake news. Zelensky, by the way, he also said that in a statement, he said that if Putin shows up at the G20, he's not going to show up at the G20. I think the G20 is scheduled for the 15th of November, if I'm not mistaken. The 15th, I think the 15th to the 18th is the G20 summit in Indonesia. 15th to 16th in Bali, Indonesia. And Zelensky said, quote, "My personal position and that of Ukraine is that if the leader of the Russian Federation participates, then Ukraine will not participate." For which I say, yeah, because Ukraine should not be participating in the G20 because Ukraine is not a G20 country. So I say, yeah, you shouldn't be participating in this event. You shouldn't go. You have no business being there. And stay in Kiev or wherever you are, wherever you're located, Zelensky, stay there because you're not a G20 country. Maybe if it was the G20 in reverse, instead of like the top 20 countries, you took the top 20 performing economies, you took the worst 20 performing economies, then I would say you called it the G20. Then I would say, okay, Ukraine should be there. But no, you shouldn't. You have no business being at the G20. So I find this statement from Zelensky, I say, yeah, don't show up, don't go, because you have no business being there. Period. Are we just going to allow every country now to show up at the G20? Greece, can Greece go to the G20? How come we can't go? How come Ukraine gets to go? How come we can't go? How come there's no G20 for no invitation for Syria or Iraq or Afghanistan or Yemen? How come Yemen isn't allowed to go to the G20? They've been attacked. Afghanistan was attacked and invaded. Syria attacked and invaded. Syria is still occupied by the United States. How come they're not invited to the G20? Anyway, let's do a clown world and wrap this video up. Let's not make this into a long one here. And let's see, what should be my clown world story? Backlash for Germany's Baerbock over the crucifix removal at the G7 meeting. How about that one? So Annalena Baerbock, it's now been found out over the past couple of days that during the G7 meeting in the German city of Münster, that Baerbock, the foreign ministry, now she's saying that she didn't order this. She's saying that she has nothing to do with this, but the foreign ministry, well, they organized the G7, right? It's the foreign ministry. That's what they do. And as they were preparing the town to host the G7 leaders, they removed a crucifix, from what I understand, a 480-year-old crucifix that was in the town. And 480-year-old cross was taken down in order to appease the G7 summit attendees. Now, Baerbock claims that she had nothing to do with this, and it's regrettable, but there's a lot of German society and German politicians, to be fair, that are very upset with this move, the fact that they took down a crucifix, a 480-year-old crucifix, a part of the town, a part of its architecture, a part of its identity. That's what makes, that was part of the town. That's what made the town, unique. It was part of its culture, and Baerbock took it down. Well, her foreign ministry decided to take it down. She's saying, I didn't know. I had nothing to do with it. But anyway, that shows you the thinking of these people, the agenda and the thinking of these WEF green puppets, I guess is the best way to categorize Baerbock and Habeck and all of these guys and gals. I'm just trying to think if I have another clown world that I could get to. Could you say that Biden promising to shut down U.S. coal power plants, could you categorize that as a clown world?
So it's going to become a wind generation. And all they're doing is going to save them a hell of a lot of money, and using the same transmission line that transmitted the coal-fired electric on. We're going to be shutting these plants down all across America and having wind and solar.
Greece reopened their coal power plants because of the energy crisis. They had them shut down for like 4 years because of the whole green agenda. And when Greece went along with the sanctioning of Russia, they reopened their coal power plants because otherwise we would have been in big trouble on the energy front. So now Biden is talking about, in a speech, he was talking about shutting down the coal power plants. Now, how serious is he? Who knows? He was talking about shutting down Keystone, and he did it. We're going to be shutting these plants down all across America and having wind and solar. This was a speech he gave in San Diego to fundraise for Democrats ahead of the midterms. Man, Biden is a wrecking ball. He is an economic wrecking ball. I don't even think he knows it. What a force of destruction he is for the U.S. economy and for U.S. energy security. So there's that. And how about one more quick story here, and that has to do with an update with regards to Finland, Prime Minister Sanna Marin, and her little partygate thing, where she was drinking and boozing it up with her friends, and then she went out to the nightclubs and dirty danced with rock stars. Well, an investigation took place, and surprise, surprise, she was found to be, I don't want to say innocent. There was no wrongdoing that was found. Let's see here. The Finnish equivalent of an attorney general carried out an investigation into Marine's social life after receiving several complaints that accused her of taking time off without arranging a deputy to cover for her and being unable to fulfill the responsibilities of her job. And they found that the complaints couldn't be upheld because they did not specify what duties Marin might have left unfulfilled and which of her duties might have been jeopardized while she was drinking, singing, and dancing at a private house party and later at a Helsinki nightclub. The Finland's Chancellor of Justice, Thomas Poisti, he was the one that conducted this investigation. He said that there's no reason to suspect the Prime Minister of illegal contact in the minister's official position or neglect of duty. No wrongdoing from Marin. She's been cleared, and all is good. Now bring in NATO. Bring in those nukes. Let's nuke it up in Finland. Let's bring them in. Anyway, that's kind of 3 clown worlds, maybe 3 clown worlds there, maybe 4. Anyway, that's the video, guys. theduran.locals.com. Go to Rockfin as well. We are on Rockfin. And check out Alexander's channel. Check out the Duran's channel. Go to the Duran shop. 10% off. Use the code GOODDAY. Take care.